Hi, I'm Josh Hunt. I'm one of the regional team, members of the regional team. And this morning, first thing this morning, I met up with the rest of the team for a meeting, and we were just reflecting over the COVID issue and what we had learned personally, how we've been coping, and how it impacted some of our churches, ministers, but some of the good stories as well. And I thought you might be interested in having a listen in. So sit back and enjoy watching the SCBA first video cast.
Inspire, connect,
resource, growing healthy churches
is in relationship for God's mission.
So it's good to get together and to kind of reflect a little bit together over this period of COVID. I'm sure we've learnt a huge amount. Just wondered how each of you are coping with this yourselves.
Me? I think it was Kat put something on Facebook around sometimes you go pottering in the garden, you're baking, and you're going on these nice walks, and all is well. And then other times you wake up and she jokingly put the thing around drinking gin for breakfast. I haven't quite got to that stage, but it's definitely a bit up and down, I'd say, for me.
Colin, are you doing anything particular to get you through this season?
Apart from the gin for breakfast, is that what you're asking? I think just the regularity of getting out, feeling my feet, crunching the shingle down at the beach. Yesterday was nice because the weather's been good just recently. So Alison and I generally go out at the end of the day about 5:45, something like that, and to go down there in our flip-flops and then walk along the beach, with flip-flops off and feel the sea. Just something that just keeps us grounded in another reality, which is absolutely a beautiful gift as well. So there's been something about that daily routine.
Have you got out and about, Dave? Is that one of the things you've been doing?
Yeah,
doing some exercise.
Yeah, I've tried to get out most days, to be honest, and just pootle about on the bike and past the cake shops that I would normally stop at. So I've looked longingly at those cake shops. I can't wait for them to reopen. So that's been great, and so there's been parts of the lockdown which I've really, really enjoyed. Obviously, I've spent more time with Sue, which has been fantastic. But there's other parts of it where it's just driving me crazy. I'm missing people so much. I'm beginning to get really zoomed out. I'm finding Zoom is affecting me. I don't know why I find them so irritating, but I just really do. And so, which is not normally me. I'm fairly laid back, but these Zoom meetings they wind me up.
Is it because you're seeing your own face a lot more, Dave, and you don't normally have to put up with that?
I think that's part of it, Colin. You just think to yourself, "Who is that old man looking at me?" It's incredible. So, and then I realised it was Josh. It's okay. So, sorry, Josh. Sorry.
Okay.
So I think for me it's been a real mixture. So good things, but I think I'm well ready now to get out and actually see the people we've just got used to seeing. The friendships that we've been establishing over the last period of time. It's not the same on the phone. It's not the same over Zoom. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to getting to see them.
I thought this season wouldn't be too bad because when we were told to work from home, March the 16th, I think we were working from home. So it's been a long period. We work from home a lot, so I thought, it's just an extended period of working from home. But I must admit, there was one period. There was a week when we had some bad weather or not so good weather, because we had some fantastic weather, haven't we? Absolutely fantastic weather. And that week, I'd kind of plummeted really. I just found it really difficult, and I think this. For some of us, getting outside, being outside is so important, isn't it? We don't realise what a gift it is to be outside.
Yeah.
And although I run in the rain, it doesn't really matter. That week was really, really difficult. So after that, I set myself a challenge. We were chatting about it earlier, Dave, weren't we? About running the itching navigation, the itching way. Yeah. And it just gave me another focus. It's bizarre, I have to plan the routes, I have to prepare how long it's going to take me. Just gave me a completely different focus. But also, as I was running one day, as I was running along it, and I suddenly thought this is the place that I need to be, just to be wholesome and healthy, and just seeing the sun and the water and the birds and wondering what on earth I'm doing running 10k or whatever it might be. But we need to understand ourselves, don't we, and what we require in a period such as this, and go and do those things and make sure that we keep ourselves well.
Yeah.
I don't require a 10-mile run or a 10k run. I just need to say that it's not.
No, but you required your potting shed, didn't you?
I did, and I took up as if it's a lifelong hobby, weaving. I did some weaving with my willow.
And it's fascinating. Lots of people have been picking up hobbies that they've never done before, but finding something really refreshing and new in that. And any new hobbies, Dave or Colin?
No, but I was surprised to hear that the price of wool has gone up significantly during the lockdown because so many people are knitting at home. My wife's a knitter, and so she's been she's been doing the ark and do all the little animals within the ark. So it's been fascinating. We've got crocodiles, we've got elephants, we've got rhinos all over the house. So it's been interesting.
My hobby has been developing my memory skills by trying to be absolutely sure where everything in our local Tesco is. Other Tesco's are available, so that I don't have to break the one-way system. There's a fine for other things, but a fine for that would not be a good thing. So I don't want that on my record, basically.
Yeah.
So one of the things we have been doing is obviously trying to connect with our churches, our ministers, our youth workers, pioneers, all those that we're responsible for under God to care for. Lots of phone calls. How have we found people coping out there in the world in their different localities?
Well, I think my experience is that on the whole, they're just hugely encouraged, really. They got launched into this new world that nobody ever knew, and engaging in technology that frankly most of us weren't engaging in. And yet the stories that we're getting back from all over the place is that church attendance has skyrocketed. The growth in prayer within church life has again rocketed. The community initiatives and the bonds that have been made with people within the community are just getting warmer as a result of this. So many positive things. I think it's something I want to just highlight.
I think there's been an increase in connections both across the church, much more regular connection with a wider range of people, I think, and also with people beyond the church, which is terrific. I've been very struck by one of the developments down at Charlton Down, where Ben and Ez came to the conclusion that now was the time to offer a way of gathering, even if it's virtually, gathering people together who are interested in faith and building on the relationship building that they've already done to be trusted people in that community, and the lovely encouraging take-up that there's already been on that. And their approach has been to wait to really properly listen to that community rather than impose things on them. But now there's that sense that this is the time. So watch that space. But that's fantastic that on the basis of the relationships that are there, people are saying we'd like to be involved in gathering in some way.
I love the story from the meeting place down at Westbourne. Neil runs this. I think it might be twice weekly. A Zoom gathering for toddlers. I just think that's fantastic. I asked him how it was going. He said it's absolute chaos. But it was so wise because one of the important elements of mission and ministry there is through their toddlers groups. And just trying to keep connected with those families I thought was a fantastic idea. Yeah.
Claire, you particularly come across something really encouraging in terms of connecting with toddlers yourself, haven't you, just recently?
There's the research that's just kind of come out. I think it was Church of England and then a couple, Hope and another organisation, just basically sort of pushing the fact that it's such an opportunity, the under fives and the faith kind of work that we can do with under fives, and that toddler groups is such an opportunity. Not only just obviously serving the community, but actually in terms of mission and sharing faith. And so I think it's well worth checking that research out. I'll put the link on our Facebook page so that people can see it if they want to. If you're doing toddler groups virtually, then that's great. Just keep on. But I was going to say that with our site, the CYF workers and things, it's a bit like we were saying about the range of emotions that we kind of encounter. And there's definitely been a range, and people have their good days and their bad days, like all of us, don't they, really? And I think for me, it's been like trying to just encourage them to be who God's created them to be, and not to feel the pressure to do online stuff if that's not really their kind of bag and that's not natural to them. Are there other ways in which they can serve the children and the young people in their communities and churches, and just making sure they don't have that pressure to kind of keep up with everybody else, but just to be the person God's created them to be. So that's been a bit of a mantra that I keep reminding people of, that they're loved because of who they are, not what they do, kind of thing. So
I can really relate to that bit about being emotionally on edge. I think, my experience personally and others I talk to is that our emotions are heightened in every respect. And it can surprise us because we're used to being the ones that are strong and caring and available for others. And then when we as pastors and leaders find that we're affected just the same as everybody else, why wouldn't we be? Then actually it can be a bit of a surprise. And just the importance of being kind to ourselves about that as well as to others. And, part of it is actually things like Skype and Zoom and the flatness of the experience, which is such a weird one. You don't get the same feedback. We're used to tuning in, even without even thinking about it, to all sorts of things that are coming across from other people in the room. They give us a little bit of energy because they feed back to us. We give them a bit of energy because of the way that we smile or whatever. All those great things. And unless you've got really wonky eyes, actually being able to do that on Zoom, apart from the fact that it's not just about what you see, it's almost what you sense, is very difficult. So it's being kind to ourselves really, and realizing this is not just the same. Just because you can see someone doesn't mean it's the same. It's a fantastic gift, but it's not the same, and it is very draining. And when we're tired, of course, we're often very, very emotionally vulnerable to what goes on.
Yeah, and I think also, for so many of our people, this whole thing about speaking into a camera just is so unnatural. All of us having a go at it, but I must be honest, it's not something I enjoy at all. I love the interaction with the congregation, because as we know, a sermon's not a monologue. And yet what we're doing at the moment just seems like a monologue, and I'm just so missing actually interacting with people. And so I think some of our people, they've really grasped this. And just touching on what Claire was saying there, we're all built different. We all have different gifts and whatever. And so some are excelling in this time because it's just hitting their buzzers. But for some of us, we're just thinking, oh my goodness, we're just continually operating outside of our comfort zone.
I think the technology is a massive challenge. It's great, the technology is. I mean, it's fantastic. We can be all talking together like this, even recording it for others to listen to, if they dare. But it's a challenge as well. It's a real challenge, and it's stressful. And when it doesn't go right, or you can't work out what room in Zoom you're meant to be in. We lost someone. I was on a Zoom meeting yesterday, and I made a mistake because it was a 40-minute one, and the 40-minute was up. And then we tried to reconnect, and we just lost someone. We were just laughing that they were in some corridor somewhere trying to find what room they were meant to be in. But I think, when churches are doing online services or recording stuff, trying to communicate, connect, do small group stuff, prayer meetings, it has become quite a stressful moment for many people. And I think Claire is very wise, and I think we've all been trying to say it, is you don't have to do it that way. It can be done other ways. and therefore just find a way that works for you.
And it's also back to back often, isn't it? If we're not careful, we allow our diaries to be fuller than they ever were, and yet there's no time driving in between meetings, or having a cup of coffee where you simply go away from that, or doing something that's not looking at a screen, and that's very tiring as well for us.
Yeah, I think one of the other things is this season does give us an opportunity to learn something new about ourselves. You know, I've been because I'm out and about so much, that fits and works for me really well. When I'm kind of enclosed, and I call it cabin fever, you learn a lot about yourself, and you suddenly realise that there are vulnerabilities in you that you weren't aware of, and to recognise those things, and then to kind of name them, see them, and then make sure you protect yourself, give space. I mean, the number of times I've said to ministers, I think you guys may have done the same. You take time out, go and do something that is completely different. It's so important in this season, because you're in this bubble, aren't you? And you can't get out of it. It feels like you can't get out of it. Well, find some way of doing it.
I met someone recently, and online, of course, but met them, and they said that they had a pattern of their normal sort of prayer time earlier in the day, a decent walk at some point in the day, but also trying to find something that's nourishing just for them, not because they're preparing something, so doing some reading of 3/4 an hour or so a day as well, just working through something which has got something, some goodness for them. And I thought that was their way of applying the Sabbath principle for them, as it were, in this particular time. Arguably, we might do that at any point, but certainly at this time.
I'm beginning to hear, thankfully, that our people are now starting to take some time off. Because for weeks and weeks and weeks, I think our people have just been sort of day after day after day in this strange new world, just ploughing on. And I think one of the observations I would make is that as I've been interacting with them through the phone or through Zoom or whatever, I've just been seeing how people are getting more and more tired, and just encourage them. Please just take some time away, take some time off. Just feed your soul. Just the point that you were making there, Colin, I think is so important. Now, thankfully, we're beginning to see how people do this, and I'm trying to encourage it. I'm just saying, please take some time.
And of course, it's tempting to see it as a waste, because of course, if you're used to your annual leave being always going away somewhere special or distant from where you live, then we can start to think, oh well, I don't really just want to potter around at home for my annual leave. But actually, that's exactly what we do need to do, and especially at the moment where we can go out to places as well, that is permitted. It's really important not to lose the time off where actually all the emails, all the phones, all the contact is shut down. You're not preparing for anything, and you actually make some choices with the amount of freedom that you have got. So I'm taking some leave off some time off next week, precisely for that reason, not wanting to lose some time away really for refreshment, and obviously some time with Alison as well.
Yeah. How's CYF workers coping, Claire, in this situation?
Like I say, it's a bit of a mixed bag, but I think some of them are under quite a lot of pressure, because they might be the one that has some of the technical knowledge, and so they're kind of trying to keep the CYF stuff going, as well as supporting and wanting to help the church services on a Sunday in a different way than what they might normally be doing. And so I think actually they're being pulled in a lot of different directions. I also particularly mindful of those with young children, and some of them are maybe from churches where they're still expecting maybe the same level of stuff, all moved virtually, and so they're sort of having to homeschool or look after little ones who are very, demanding and wanting attention, understandably, plus trying to do all of their church work, plus trying to self-care and just keep themselves kind of sane. I think there's a few that are probably pulled in lots of different directions. So and for others, they're in a different season of life, and that's not quite that's not what's happening for them. So yeah, a mixed bag. I just I've realised that some churches like it's to be consumed, and so they expect church to be providing things for them. They expect the COF workers to be providing things rather than equipping families to be able to do faith in the home, or to be able to actually, we're responsible for our own discipleship, and it can be a bit kind of dependent on the church providing for them rather than that sort of.
And I guess, Claire, you need something that really complements what's going on, because the homeschooling is something that the schools have been brilliant at offering support for that, where it's possible to do that online and so on. But if then as a church we add a load of extra stuff that the children are supposed to do, or we sort of interfere with that, it's hard enough doing the homeschooling, isn't it, for people?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like it's intense. It can be really intense.
Yeah.
But there's been some great opportunities as well, I guess. I think the fact that, we can't travel, but we have this technology as being, for me, I was in Harlow the other day. I dropped into, I didn't drop in, they invited me to join their gathering via Zoom. And then the following week I was in Guernsey, which was fantastic as well, on Liberation Sunday, which was really quite moving to be part of that. I wasn't speaking, but just to listen to some of the stories of liberation and the occupation in Guernsey. So there's been some really interesting, wonderful. Oh, Maundy Thursday was great as well. Maundy Thursday, I sat there with my glass of wine and bread, and connected with the Southampton cluster group that were running the Maundy Thursday service, which was so unusual, a bit unique and different, and quite precious actually, I think.
Yeah, and I think with clusters, I've been really encouraged actually to see the way that clusters have been functioning during this time. And in fact, it's not scientific but my sense is that actually attendance at cluster has actually gone up through this time, a bit like church services where more people are sort of connecting. And I'm just hoping that that there will be a real growth in clustering post-COVID. As people begin to build those relationships and have taken their time to actually connect in this period.
So as we listen to some of the really great opportunities that there are online, and that includes, there's an alpha course running out of Thatcham online. Others are making connections with the increased viewing numbers for their services and other events they're putting on, and of course that raises questions for the future. But it's almost like there's some great things about this time, some of which are around the fact that we can connect electronically, and then of course the prayer and hope and everything is towards getting back to being free to meet again. Ultimately, it's quite a pressure, isn't it, this pressure to take what's been online, which is great, and some people might want to say, can we continue doing that? And then this other pressure, which is, can we go back to everything exactly as it was before, but with actually the same number of people doing it or resourcing it?
Well, I think one of the things that it seems to be coming across right across the board is the encouragement of more people being engaging in ministry in our churches, whether that be on the tech side of things, or I was thinking more specifically about the way that people are pastoring one another. And so they've been broken down into smaller units, and people who've not normally taken a role within pastoral care actually stepping up and saying, yeah, actually, I'll be happy to coordinate that little small group. And so one of the things I'm hoping and praying for is post-COVID, that those kind of initiatives continue. Because I don't know, I just got a sense that some of our people have never felt better pastored.
I think you make a great point, Dave. I've heard a number of stories of people that were quite passive in church life, perhaps hadn't found their niche or their gifting or their opportunity, and then come this season, suddenly they've come alive. They're like flowers that have been waiting to flourish, and suddenly they have, because maybe it's because it's not so, I don't know, demanding, or it's easier to think things through, particularly people who have been really busy on WhatsApp, connecting with people and caring for people. Others have been ringing people. So I think you're absolutely right. I think it has brought out gifting that hasn't perhaps been seen quite so much in church life for some people.
I was really moved the other day. I was in part of a home group, and a young girl, early 20s, had been asked to actually lead home group that night, and you could just tell via Zoom she was really quite nervous. I can't tell you how much that girl blessed the socks off me. I tell you what, she quite remarkable, and probably she wouldn't have been given that opportunity if it wasn't for this little season. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, how many other people have we got within our churches who've got so much to offer? Where if we just give them an opportunity, who knows what will happen?
And I wonder whether you're raising the question, Dave, as you say that, and what's been said before, of it almost invites where there's a pastoral minister in a church, and of course not all our churches do have someone serving in that way, but it almost invites ministers further down the road of one of the things we always said we were about, which is to equip and release others into their ministries and their serving, and needing to almost think about how that can happen before we're invited simply to go straight back to how it was.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that I was just reading some of these initiatives that Jinka in his year of presidency was wanting to be a catalyst for across the nation. But the one that really strikes home with me is about how we enable and how we equip, how we give permission even to some of the people within our churches. And I was tempted to say younger people, but actually I'm not talking about young people. I'm talking about people of all ages who perhaps haven't had a leadership role, and yet it's in them. So how can we create the environment where they can start to flourish?
Claire, you must see things within this season that you're thinking that's great opportunities. We don't want to lose that.
Yeah, I was thinking with the CYF work, there's been some really creative, wonderful stuff, but it's the relational bit that really is the bread and butter, especially like within youth work, and I don't think Zoom lends itself really naturally to some of those relational approaches to youth work. So I think there's been a real loss there. And actually, if young people have been doing online learning, again, do they want to have like another kind of meeting? And sometimes maybe a 12-year-old young person, not the most easy for conversations, do you know what I mean? And so even then it's those sort of dynamics. So I bet there's a load of youth workers that are longing for the day where they can hot chocolate and a proper chat with their young people, rather than awkward silences and another icebreaker, because actually I think people are probably, and understandably, doing games and icebreakers online rather than relational stuff, because it's tricky, isn't it? And some of the young people haven't quite got those skills. Fine, they're not quite as because they're still learning. And so I there's been some really, really good stuff, and I think the way that maybe if we're working with schools and we're supporting some of the more vulnerable families, that's really interesting, really exciting. And if you've got those partnerships already, then that's just going to kind of grow, I think. So especially when schools start going back, and how we can continue to be supporting the work in schools. There's lots of opportunities, I think, on the horizon for us.
Well, it sounds like we're learning a huge amount about ourselves, about what church is and can be, what we can learn in this period of COVID, technology, how that can be beneficial. I think one of the real benefits is that it's thrown churches into technology, whereas most of us go, I can't be bothered with that, and suddenly we've had to embrace it. So I think that's a good thing, and all those lessons we carry on into the future, how we connect together, and what God is saying, I guess. Which kind of brings us a little bit to June the 8th conversation, that we'll hopefully host a much bigger Zoom meeting than this together. Just thinking about that, Colin, looking forward to that, June the 8th. Some really key questions that we want to kind of talk about.
Yes, I think it'll be a chance to pause. Some people have been talking about the great pause being now because of the way that creation and the natural world have been able to breathe, and all the things we've noticed about that. It's the great pause in terms of lots of activity that we're up to. But I wonder whether there's also a case for pausing for some deliberate reflection before God and saying, what are we noticing in this time that seems to be of God in our communities, in our churches, in our own lives, and of course in wider society. And the point of pausing is to really see whether there's some things that we want to stay with or make more of. Other things may have just been for the season, but some things we may want to retain. I guess pausing also gives us a chance to reflect from a little bit of distance on some of the things that we normally do, and reflect on those as well. And some of those things we'll say that really is of God. We miss that hugely, not simply because we miss something familiar, but because that is so of God. But there may be other things where we say, actually we miss it because it was just part of the regularity of life and church and so on. But actually it may not be vital, because we probably can't continue to do all the things we've learned and appreciate from this time and all the things we were doing before. We won't be able to do that. So thank you, Joth. Yeah, that June the 8th, 10 till 12, need to book in so that you get the Zoom link. But that will be a chance for us to prayerfully reflect and really hear God's voice from amongst all of us that gather. And some others might want to have already consulted with each other who can't be there and actually pass on to us their own responses to the questions that we've put together.
I think it'd be really helpful. It'd be great to hear from all kinds of different people's perspectives, and they will be very different, which is really, really important. Great. Before, I've got other things to do today, so we need to bring this to an end. It's been great seeing you and chatting to you. But is there anything particular that in this season so far, this period, that we haven't noted that we want to just note together before we say farewell?
I think for me it will be that great sentence at the end of Psalm 138, where the psalmist says, continue your good purposes and work in me. Do not forsake the work of your hands. So there's something about the psalmist having a strong sense of God's good purposes that will continue, but also has that little bit of sort of flakiness and says, don't forsake the work of your hands, as it were, all at the same time. And it's just that sense of it's okay to have both things going on all at the same time, rather than feeling that we've got to be in one place or regret being in the other place.
Mm.
I think I've really appreciated the way that we've been able to highlight the importance of what people do outside of churches, and the key roles that so many of our people have. I must be honest, I've thoroughly enjoyed every Thursday night at 8 o'clock getting outside and with our neighbours, shouting away and clapping away and thanking God for these people. And of course, quite a number of these people are within our churches. And I just wonder how much we've celebrated them in the past. But I just hope that as we go forward, we will learn to really celebrate one another, irrespective of our roles, whether they're inside the church, but especially, I think, outside of the church.
I was just going to say, I was at a listening thing yesterday. I think it was Glenn, Lee, Simon and Roy, and it was really good. And I think it was Glenn that sort of said that humans are sometimes a bit elastic and they ping back to what was familiar. And I just really hope we don't ping back to just how things were, but actually things do change. And that, the church discovers its wider calling to its community and continues with those relationships that maybe they've started building up. I think there's just... It could be obviously it's a tragic time, but it could lend itself to a really exciting time going forward. And so I hope we don't ping back.
I think the last thing I'll just comment on is I found it fascinating going through this COVID season in the period of running up to Easter, and then this period of Easter to Pentecost, the Ascension and Pentecost, and the seasons, and going through scripture and thinking about those events from a very different perspective, from a very different place, a very different context, and how those events have spoken into my life in a fresher, different way, an unnormal way, which has been a real blessing, I think, and a precious gift in the season. It's always wonderful to see you all. Dave, just missing the hugs.
I'm missing hugging you, mate.
Thanks for chatting. Keep well.
Yeah, great seeing you guys.
Yeah, God bless you.
Okay, bye now.
Inspire, connect
Resource. Growing healthy churches.
is in relationship for God's mission.